So welcome back, everybody, to United in Strengths. And I'm Ryan Nemec, and here with Ruth Pierce in the VIA Institute on Character. And we're continuing our theme on relationships and thinking about bringing our relationship to the world and examining that a little bit more closely. And for today's session, we can think about the concept of teachers and how the world is potentially our teacher. During this such unprecedented time that we're in, we can really begin to think about that in a different way. How is the world your teacher in some way? And what might be the important question? What is the world teaching you right now? Maybe specifically, who is your teacher in your personal life, your professional life? And I'm using the word teacher in a general way. Maybe you could think of it as a generic way, all-encompassing way. So I'm not thinking of just K through 12 teachers or professors. I'm thinking of teachers as in your mentors. Can the world be your mentor in some way right now? Who are your mentors right now? I'm thinking of it from the phrase of role models. Who do you look up to? And I'm thinking of it from the perspective of paragons, which is kind of the more extreme word. Paragons or exemplars, which is kind of somebody that is an exemplar for you in terms of portraying character strengths or virtue or coping with stress, resilience, whatever it might be that you're looking for in your life. So all of those words, I think, apply here, that we could be looking for our mentors, role models, and paragons and looking at what we learn from with this. And these are very important terms when it comes to our own personal life and when it comes to even the character strengths research. You may or may not know that when the character strengths and virtues classification, the VIA classification, was put together, these 24 strengths, one of the main criteria to be a character strength was that there be paragons for that particular strength in the world. So there be paragons for kindness, say like a Mother Teresa is an exemplar of, or was an exemplar of that particular strength. Paragons for leadership, paragons for curiosity. That was one of the 10 to 12 main criteria. So it's a useful concept to think of, and because we learn so much through observation. I might have said this before, but one of the most famous, if not the most famous psychologists alive today, Albert Bandura, who's noted as the father of observational learning, said that most of human learning comes to us through observation. And that information that we get from observing others, from observing role models and mentors and paragons, that information is then encoded in us, in our brains, in our bodies, for us to then use it in the future. So you have within you sort of encodings and memories and thoughts and observations from observing good behavior from your mother, your father, and maybe it wasn't always good, but moments, experiences, teachers and people in the media, movie characters and book characters, fictional, non-fictional, friends, colleagues, neighbors, and so on. So we have that within us. And so it's a powerful thing to think about who are our mentors and exemplars. And especially at this time when we really need leadership and people standing up in different ways, wherever you are in the world. For example, related to COVID-19, one of my role models, I wouldn't say it's a mentor because I don't know this person. The mentors usually are people that we know well. They know us and we know them. So I would say it's more of a role model. Somebody that I look up to is, I live in the state of Ohio, which is kind of on the eastern side, toward the eastern side of the United States. And the part of the coping that's going on in Ohio is we have a governor's message and governor's experience of what's going on and sharing of what's going on and sharing us data of what's going on every day for about an hour and a half. And one of my role models is his colleague that comes on in most of these sessions, and her name is Dr. Amy Acton, and she's a physician, kind of a health guru in that sense, and she comes on all these governor messages. She comes on, and she just has this enormously gentle and calm way, and her voice is just so soothing, and yet she's so brilliant with how she talks about things and how she is cautious and implores people to be cautious and to do the right thing. But also she answers the questions in a very humble way. We don't know the answer to this. We don't know this or that. And then when we do know something, she says it with a sense of firmness and wisdom and strength, and always staying self-regulated and cool and calm with her wisdom and humility. And so she is, for me, a role model. She's somebody then that I look up to and think about when I'm trying to face adversity in my life. And maybe my adversity is my 3 kids and my family, and we're all kind of, running around crazy in this house. Or maybe it's my interaction with somebody outside my community that's not adhering to any of the rules, and whatever it might be. I can think of her as a place and as a person of calmness. So I'd be curious, in your life, who are your wisdom figures that you can draw from, and what are their character strengths? Because that's probably what draws us to the person. That's probably what helps us most. So for me, in watching Dr. Acton, I'm seeing the leadership, I'm seeing the self-regulation, I'm seeing the humility and the kindness, and it'd be interesting, I could probably go through all 24 character strengths. So think about that for yourself, and we'll do a meditation in a moment to try to really expand upon these ideas. And so that's coping right now in the moment. But what about also in general in your life? Who have been, as you've lived the decades of your life, who have been those wisdom figures for you in general? Family members, friends, who have been your role models? It's always sad for me when I hear that people can't name or don't name a role model. I remember a guy I was working with at the Boys and Girls Club, and he was, I think, the second or third in command at one of these Boys and Girls clubs, which help at-risk youth. And this kind of secondary director was really a smart guy, really thoughtful, really great with the kids that just were in such need. And we were doing some character strengths work, and we were doing this kind of work of having them think about their role models and their strengths, and then how they're also role models for the kids. And so really great conversation. But when we asked him about, name one of your role models and the character strengths that they have, he just wasn't able to do it. He said, I don't have any role models. I can't think of. I just a self-made person. I never really looked up to anybody. I just did it all on my own. Which I understand his underlying themes there, but at the same time, I felt a sense of sadness for him that he wasn't able to come up with one, and wasn't able to think of who is inspiring him, who is lifting him up, because everybody has some kind of role model, direct and indirect, and we have many of them. None of us are women on islands or men on islands. We're all influenced by people in so many ways, and maybe we're never attended to that or been very mindful of it, but it's certainly the truth in so many ways. And then I think, in contrast to that, I think of I presented 10 years ago or so at the U.S. Air Force Base or U.S. Air Force Academy, and I was talking to various officers there and character strengths, and I was doing a role modeling exercise. I'll never forget, one of the sergeants raised his hand and said, I'll share who my role model is. And this was a guy who had seen all sorts of battle. He kind of he was like running the helicopter and kind of, I don't know the terms, but going around and seeing battle and atrocities that I've never seen. And he says, my role model was Mr. Rogers from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And this tough guy is saying this, and he says, I really appreciated his kindness, his gentleness, his appreciation for people that were different than him, and that's informed me for who I have become today. And I think about Mr. Rogers, he said, when I'm on that helicopter, when I'm seeing battle, that comes to my mind in my training. So these can take all sorts of different forms. I wanted to tell you another story of another one of somebody that I look up to is a mentor of mine. I was a postdoc in St. Louis at a clinic, and I had this director of the clinic, and his name was Dr. Bob Wilkie, and I hated him actually, and I felt that he treated students. I was a postdoc, but still seen as a student. I felt he treated people very unfairly. He was kind of mean. He was gruff. Kind of didn't seem to be very caring. Treated his colleagues different than he treated the students, and so on. So I didn't like him, and I don't use that word hate very often, but back then I hated him, and so I coped with it for a year or so, and then he ended up leaving the clinic, and I stayed on, and then he came back about a year later, and I was in a different role. He was in a different role, and we bonded and connected. And he was the one that actually got me going with leading mindfulness programs and kind of empowering me to do that with the various clients. And so we forged a relationship for a couple of years, and then he got a brain tumor and started to deteriorate very quickly. And he said to me, Ryan, I'm dying and I'm losing my mindfulness. I'm losing I'm losing my Buddhism. And I want you to bring my Buddhism back. I want you to bring my mindfulness back, my meditation back. And this guy knew 100 times more than I did about meditation and mindfulness, Buddhism and so on. And I could tell because I'd seen his books on his shelf, and he had underlined basically every word of each one of those books. So he actually was reading all of his books. And, what could I say? I said, I shared my limitations, and he said, no, I need this, please help me. So I would go to his home as he was dying, a couple times a week, whatever it was, and teach him mindfulness, so that he knew that as he was going, he wanted to go out of this world with mindfulness, with a sense of presence, with a sense of spirituality. And so he kind of made me, the student, turned me into the teacher. So it was sort of a role reversal that he created there. And we did that all the way to his deathbed in the hospital, teaching meditation. And so even though I might have become the teacher, I was still very much the student, and he was still very much my role model. And I loved him. So my hatred that I originally had for him as a postdoc over the years turned into love, and it was mutual. And so a great role model, great teacher for me, and sort of just another piece in me that kind of inspired my own mindfulness and my spiritual journey, and perhaps for me of one pathway for dying well. So I could keep going, as I'm sure you could. I mean, I would love to talk about my mother and how she has been my main role model for all of the character strengths. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here in many ways, but certainly wouldn't be here teaching on character strengths. So I'm sure you could too. And I would like to encourage you all to think about this. I want to say one more point, though, on how important this is that if you look at the scholarly work on the Character Strengths and Virtues book, which is 800 pages, and if you look in one section on each of these, there's a section for each of the character strengths on enablers. In other words, what enables character strengths in people, what enables character strengths in groups and institutions. And as I looked through this and studied it, one of the big patterns for enabling a character strength is this topic today. It is role models, mentoring, looking to paragons. All these are fairly similar, however you want to call it, but looking to them and learning through observation. So if you're ever looking for how to boost character strengths, 2 things to make it really simple. Be a character strengths model and get a character strengths model. Those 2 things. So for your family, for the world, for the people in your neighborhood, try to be the best character strengths you can, whatever the ones you value. Be the kindness and the love and the social intelligence as best you can, imperfectly for sure. And secondly, name very clearly your character strength models. Maybe it's models in general, like I was mentioning, or maybe it's role models for kindness or for fairness or for creativity or spirituality or humor or zest or whatever it is. So I would boil it to those 2 things. So let's take a moment. I'll invite the bell and we can consider a meditation on this really important topic. So centering yourself on your breathing, present to your in-breath and your out-breath, allowing your body to be relaxed but also strong in this moment. Feeling comfortable, but also powerful. And we can find that anchor into the present moment with our inhale and our exhale. And we know that because if you're breathing in and you're aware that you're breathing in, then you are in the present moment. And if you're aware of your exhale, feeling it flow out of you, then you know you are in the present moment. And as you breathe in and out, consider this. Who is one of your role models at this time in your life? Might be a personal mentor, might be a role model in the media or in your own city, somebody that's modeling resilience and coping. Might be someone in your family, one of your close relationships. Might be someone you've never met, or somebody you know very well, or somebody who has passed away. Be present to this person and to their wisdom right now. What are their best character strengths? How do they express those character strengths? Verbally or in their behavior? How do you see those strengths expressed? How do you know they're expressing those strengths? knowing this, that you have thought of these strengths and these behaviors from this person. So they are a part of you as well. Your observations, your hearing of what this person has said. These strength expressions are within you, decoded in you, to use today, tomorrow, or a year from now. And of course, you will have your own way of using the strength, saying it maybe differently, maybe similarly, expressing it similarly or differently. But they're there. So a bow of gratitude to that role model or mentor, paragon in the world. And now consider this. What character strengths does that person see in you? And if it's no person you've ever met personally, then what character strengths might they see in you? Naming how you are seen. How you are seen in this world.